Open your ears and lube up your butthole. It's time for the What Do We Call It podcast. Now, here's your host. It's Jmann. Welcome to the What Do We Call It podcast. I'm Jmann.
And I'm number one fan, Tim.
There was a cop who in January of 2016, he was an officer with Mesa PD.
Okay.
He answered a call of a male aiming a rifle out of a window of a hotel room at a La Quinta Inn. And when he and his partners arrived, they got to the room that they thought was in question. They knocked on the door, and nobody answered. Then a phone rang, and then a female came out. She complied with all the cops' directions, and then out comes a man by the name of Daniel Shaver.
Daniel Shaver.
Now, when Daniel Shaver came out into the hallway, he was clearly confused and inebriated, as shown in the officer's body cam footage.
Okay.
And the cop, while pointing an AR-15 that so lovingly they later found out had the words engraved on it, "You're fucked." He had personally altered his own duty weapon.
You're not supposed to alter the issued weapon.
Right. So he's pointing it at this guy, Officer Philip, a.k.a. Mitch Brailsford, is pointing it at Mr. Shaver, and he's giving him clear directives to get down on the ground. Then he's telling him to cross his ankles. Then he's telling him to crawl towards them. And he seems confused.
With your ankles crossed? That's pretty tough.
No shit. That's what the detectives said. And as he's moving, the guy's very scared, and he says, "Don't shoot me." And at some point, the investigating detective said they assumed that his basketball shorts had started to fall down some. So when he went to adjust his shorts, the officer assumed he was grabbing for a gun and shot him 5 times.
Oof.
Afterwards, they found out he was unarmed.
Yeah. How well lit was this hallway? Or were they in a
Very well lit.
So you would have a second or two to see if there's an actual weapon there, I would assume.
The officer described it as a classic draw stroke, as if he's reaching for a gun.
You know, I think in that situation, if my pants was falling down, I'd just let them fall down.
Perhaps.
Because it seems, and then I'm not excusing the cop for this, but it seems like anytime you reach anywhere for anything, cops are jumpy, cops have been murdered, they've been executed, they have a bad rap, because some of them have done some pretty stupid shit. So to reach for anything, you're inviting conclusions to be drawn that aren't necessarily true. Such as, I'm going to pull my pants up, but he's going to think I'm trying to draw a weapon.
Well, he may have been wise to verbalize, "My shorts are falling down. What would you like me to do?"
Yeah. Dude, clear communication.
So this cop was pretty gung-ho from the video, and the charges that they pressed against him were second-degree murder, and then I believe it was reckless disregard for the guy's safety. He skated on both charges. No murder charge, no manslaughter charge, anything like that. They ruled
he was charged, he wasn't convicted.
None of that, no conviction, totally acquitted. And they said that it seemed that the way he acted was congruent with his training. That you wouldn't, if someone was reaching for a pocket, he could have been drawing a gun, which is true. However, the second I watched this video, I instantly dissected everywhere this fucking cop went wrong, in my opinion.
Okay.
The guy on the ground is very confused. He's telling him to cross his ankles and crawl. Now try to crawl with your ankles crossed. It's not very easy.
No.
They frequently tell people to cross their ankles if they're going to handcuff them so they can't jump up and run away or lunge at the officer. The entirety of the situation when he's giving him these clear directives, air quotes, clear directives, he's got the AR-15 pointed up at a full ready position. Not low ready, the entire video. High ready.
The "you're fucked" position.
Yes. Yes. So here's what I would have done differently if I was in Officer Brailsford's place. I would have kept the gun up and told him to lay prone on the ground, and then I would have lowered my weapon into the low ready. And I would have gone from the command officer to the cover officer and had my partner go and handcuff him.
What was his partner doing at this time? Did he just have a pistol, or did he have...
I don't know.
What was he armed with?
You cannot see, so I'm assuming his duty weapon was out.
So they didn't both have body cams then?
If they did, they only utilized or released the footage from Officer Brailsford's in the media.
Okay.
So Brailsford said that he was trying to protect his partners and the woman they were arresting behind him, which was the woman that came out of the room. Now, the story is that she was in town on business, and Shaver was in town from Texas. And she and her male companion met Shaver down at the bar at the hotel. And they went up to his room to have some drinks. They were hanging out. And then the male companion saw a pellet gun with a scope. And they were, admiring the gun and aiming it. And then they were aiming it by the window, which caused people to see and call. And she even told, under oath in her testimony, that she had warned them about being so close to the window that people might see and get the wrong idea.
Yeah. Have you ever gone to like a sports store or anywhere, or, well, like when you've been to my place and I've pulled out, I used to have the 30-30 Marlin that had a scope on it, and then I have the AR-15 with a scope on it. Did you ever? I don't think I ever took this out and showed them, did you?
No, only the 22.
Okay. When, the first thing everybody does when they see a weapon with a scope, whether it be a BB gun or an actual rifle, is they want to look through the scope, because it's something you don't look through every day, And when I'm like at a sporting goods store and I'm just looking at the scope there on display, I always make sure to aim up at the ceiling or aim at something close so that I'm not looking out the window or pointing. They have fake little wood things that are shaped like a rifle, but they're clearly not a gun. Not aiming across the store at somebody. But I don't think these two did that. I think they were looking out the window like, oh, look, I can see that guy's license plate.
Yeah, I don't know. I didn't read anything about what she said they were aiming at or looking at with the pellet gun. It was a fucking pellet gun. And it was in the room.
Pellet
not
guns do look real from a distance,
right.
Just like my airsoft guns do, despite the orange tips.
Yeah. So as I alluded to, Brailsford could have lowered his weapon while his partner handcuffed him. Mm-hmm. Once he's handcuffed on the ground because he was lying prone and he told him not to move, prone as in all the way on his belly, arms spread. From there, you cuff him behind his back, you get him on his knees, you search him right there. And at that point, you don't even need a gun out. You can just sling that bitch behind your back and pull out your taser. If you need to stop the assailant from doing anything to your partner, you can light him up right there, and it's less than lethal.
Well, yeah, I'd have to say you probably wouldn't need your taser out if all of those suspects were handcuffed. You probably wouldn't need anything out. I mean, if someone handcuffed behind their back comes charging at you, they're not going to be able to do much than knocking an officer over, which is easy enough to recover from, especially if there's more than one officer there. So, I mean, I would argue that you wouldn't even need a taser out if you have them all restrained.
I think of this whole situation as, and they'll say, well, he fell back on his training, and he did a good job of relying on that training because he was acquitted of the charges because they ruled that he was acting in good faith per his training. And I'm saying, you can train all day long for this shit, but if you've got that cowboy mentality, why would you get the words "you're fucked" engraved on your duty AR-15 if you're not looking to shoot somebody or hoping that you can use it?
It could be just put it on it because he thinks it's
badass.
Well, badass, funny. I mean, there's an AR-15 that I wanted to purchase that they call it the Hell's Child. It's the limited edition. Mm-hmm. And where the safety selectors are, it's got, safe, semi. And there's a full auto position, but the fire selector doesn't go up there. Mm-hmm. But in the third full auto position, it says safe. I can't remember what the semi-auto position said, but the full auto was like burn in hell.
Oh.
And I thought it was cute. And there's a little devil child thing engraved where the ejection port is, and at the magwell, and it looked cool, it looked funny, and like me, he was probably just thinking, oh, well, you're fucked. If I'm using this shit has hit the fan.
Yeah, it's very hot-shotty, very showy. And it makes me think back to, well, let me say this. Having that engraved on your duty AR-15 and then being involved in an on-duty shooting in the current political climate of America, you're just screaming to be the next CNN case and have people coming to your house to kill you, making death threats against your family. You're asking for all the wrong kinds of attention.
In his situation, yes. I would say that it was not wise at all to put that on a duty-issued AR-15.
I'd also like to point out that he is an ex-officer, and he was fired for violating department policy, including unsatisfactory performance. I didn't get the specifics on that, but I'm willing to bet that they were less forgiving than the courts were in how he handled this.
Yeah, well, and after an officer's acquitted, don't they usually lose their job anyways?
Most of the time, around these parts, they do. I mean, the guy in Ferguson did. The one that shot Michael Brown.
Mm-hmm,
I forget that cop's name, but he got acquitted.
Yeah, he got acquitted. But then again, there was a ton of evidence that showed that Michael Brown wasn't doing what everyone claimed he was doing. The forensic evidence led the other direction.
Yes, that he was quite guilty.
He was quite guilty.
So this made me think back to an instance, I forget how long ago it was. I believe there was snow on the ground then too. Or it was very early in the spring of this year. My next door neighbors were having a drunken shout fest. I could hear out the window a female voice say, "Oh, stop, you're hurting me." I went out back. And as I'm out back, I hear a very loud thud. Like we're talking somebody put a body into a fucking wall or took somebody down to the floor.
Okay.
And I couldn't tell if it was just the sound of a body or possibly if there might have been a firearm. I figure, well, if somebody fires off a Glock in the house, it's going to be somewhat muffled. But it was such a sudden banging sound, like a thud, like a banging thud.
Mm-hmm.
You wouldn't think it was a body, how short the actual span of the noise was. So I called 911. I told them what I heard. I told them what I thought could be going on, which was a drastic fucking mistake, mentioning possible gun. Because 5 minutes later, from down the block, walk 5 cops. 3 of them have their duty weapons out already. They're not even within 2 houses of where they're going, and they already have their guns out. That's 3 out of the 5. 3 have their handgun out. 2 of them have their ARs out.
Ooh.
And they are not slung low ready. They are up high, ready for action. These guys came in my opinion, way too excited for the opportunity to shoot somebody.
You think it was the opportunity to shoot somebody, or just they wanted to be able to defend themselves?
You've got the jump on the suspect. They didn't come with their sirens.
Yeah.
The street was well lit. They came from far enough back and were quiet enough. I'm standing by the side of the house. I wanted to just flag them down and say, I'm the one who called. I had my baton with me. I saw guns. I immediately set that shit down and put my hands up and said, I'm the one who called. I'm just trying to be a good neighbor, and I've already got my hands up and I see 5 guns out. None of them were pointed at me. Nobody trained their weapon on me, but still I went, this is too much. Why do you need your assault rifles? I said I maybe heard 1 shot. If he was killing other people or himself, I would have heard multiple shots. You would have heard multiple shots.
Even just 1 gunshot. I mean, if they're walking in there thinking that somebody's already been killed, then this person might be willing to kill again. What kind of training do you think police officers get? Is it like military training when they're breaching houses and stuff like that? And
not every cop goes through
clearing?
that. A CERT team would go through that. A CERT team or a SWAT team.
Okay. And you don't think these were SWAT officers? Or
no, these were plain cops, and they could have all 5 of them walked up with their hand on the fucking stock of their pistol up to the house quietly because they had the jump on them. They didn't need to come out guns ready. That's what got my attention. That's what I thought was too much. Is you're still 2 houses away, and in the streetlight, I see 5 cops slow walking it with their guns up. That shit, when you're calling for a possible domestic, I didn't say, oh my God, he's shooting people. I said, I don't know. Maybe I could have heard a gun due to the short duration of the sound. Could have been a 9 milli. Like from what I've heard from guns, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I got to imagine that what I hear of a handgun on the range with earplugs in and then ear muffs on is similar to how it might sound inside their house when it's shut and then inside my bedroom on the other side of that wall. We're going through 2 houses.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I'm hearing, but the thud I heard when I'm outside, so I'm only going through one house, but all the windows are closed. The screaming was loud enough that I could hear her, but she fucking screams all the time. But the point being is, here's another instance of a cop, and this is raising a lot of alarm that he got off on this when the guy was unarmed, he had kids. The whole thing was a stupid idea because he was drunk and playing around with a pellet gun. I don't know why you would bring a pellet gun into a fucking hotel room anyway.
Yeah, they're not that fun.
Well, the guy that got shot was from Texas.
Yeah.
Make of that statement what you will with the gun culture down there. But still, should have laid him prone, could have cuffed him there. Everybody could have gone home alive. You could have scolded him for the stupidity of what he was doing. It just seems like there's way too much energy amped up. And that's the problem with going into these situations where you're overprepared and you're trying to meet or exceed the threat on the force continuum.
Well, like I said, I think police are in a heightened state of alertness and all that, whatever you want to call it, because in the last, 3 years, police officers have been murdered in cold blood just sitting in their squad cars and shit like that.
But that's nothing new. It's just more highly publicized due to the fact that the media wants to
It's always happened, but
create
it
this
actually has it wasn't increased. That's why it started bringing it up more. Is there was a massive increase probably 3-4 years ago, shortly after Ferguson.
Yeah, there's different cops getting shot all over the country
police
in
just
ambush
wanna get
situations.
Home.
Yeah,
police are just like everybody else; they want to get home alive. But I would say this situation, and this is before the Las Vegas shooting, which was a couple months ago. So I can't sit here and say, "Oh, well, he's just reacting to that." It's like we're in a hotel. This is long before that. So
it's almost 2 years ago.
Yeah. So I want to say that this officer was probably being extremely careless. I don't know if I agree with him getting off.
Well, the issue at hand here, and this is what a lot of people don't understand about the equation, is the number one rule of policing is officer safety. Officer safety, not everyone's safety. Everyone goes home. Everyone is in the cops. Not everyone is in everybody involved. You're looking out for badges first. And you should, but unfortunately, with the political climate we have now, it almost should be to the point where everybody's life is equal. It's a job, dude. You have a badge. It doesn't make you special or a god. It's a job you do that you fucking chose. It is not easy to get that position of authority. So with it comes a sense of responsibility that you don't need to have your gun up right away. Like everything you're going into, every situation is going to be the gunfight at the OK Corral.
Yeah.
Fucking AR-15 trained on a man who's slurring his speech and he's confused and he's not reacting to your commands. And it was just rapid fire commands. And I've talked about this shit before, that people get jammed up. That's what the barrage of commands is aimed to do, to break up your ability to think if you're going to make a move. But the problem is that disrupts your thought patterns and you don't know what to do and you're trying to listen to what they're doing, but because of all of the tension and the adrenaline, your response time's blunted, plus you're trying to keep your fight or flight in check. So I've come to the point where I don't necessarily agree anymore with how I was trained when I went to cop school, and I know they still do it because I have friends that are cops. You're supposed to give clear commands, repeated commands. Imagine if you go to a scene and you got 3 cops and they start talking over each other.
Yeah, and they're all saying something slightly different. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the same command but with different verbiage. And you're trying to hone in on one voice.
Trying to hone in on one voice, or you hear all three, it's just like, okay, they're all saying what? Yeah.
Yeah, it ratchets up the tension. So now, instead of all of this extra awareness, all this hyper alert state going into these situations, you almost need to take it to a place of, let's calm this down. I know you see my uniform. I don't want you to be nervous. I'm going to give you commands, and I'm going to watch you very carefully. Do not give me a reason to do anything more than shout at you. And I know that I'm not a cop, and people say, you don't know what it's like. I have situations where I have inmates that are getting into shit all the time, and I have to fucking shout above their voices. And I have to give them commands. But I know to not just keep saying shit repeatedly because people get jammed up. I have coworkers that do that crap. They just keep saying it again and again and again. It's like, shut the fuck up. Now, my boss probably wouldn't love it if I did that. If I took control of a situation and I was the cover officer, at work, and I told one of my coworkers, I'm like, stop. You're getting too hot. Because now I've kind of pissed on their authority right in front of the inmates. And they'll say, well, why'd you call me out? I'm trying to fucking calm things down for everybody involved. Because that's what a lot of these situations are. Think of that kid that got shot in, I believe it was Cleveland. The kid that was walking around with the little BB pistol in the park, aiming it at people.
He aimed it at the cops, too.
He aimed it at the cop, and the cop, boom! He didn't give that kid too long.
Like I said, at that point in time, those BB guns with the spite orange tips and all that, they look real.
Get behind the fucking cruiser and start shouting at the kid.
He probably was walking up to the... I mean, again, I didn't see the footage or anything, if there even was footage, but I imagine he got out of the car, started walking up, saw the kid pointed a gun at him and just reacted.
Well, it's a kid with a gun, and even if you're like, oh shit, gun, you can still, your brain's going to register between an adult or a kid, because the second you get there, you see the kid. It's just like what happened with Laquan McDonald in Chicago. That's my favorite, I hate to use the word favorite, but that's my favorite case to bring up, is Laquan McDonald is walking down the street, 2 or 3 squads roll up, he starts veering off to the right away from the cops, one cop gets out and immediately he's the one who pulls his gun and fucking empties the whole goddamn mag into the kid. And he shoots him multiple times while he's standing up, and then he twirls around and hits the ground, and he shoots him 3 more times while he's on the ground.
Okay, what was their reasoning for that?
They didn't know what he was doing. He wasn't obeying their commands. Oh, and they also said that he came at them. The only thing they found on him was a folded up little mini pocket knife in his pocket. And that was when they went over his body with the coroner. They found a fucking pocket knife, and he wasn't going near him. Dash cam footage showed he was going away from him. So he's going to run. Boo fucking who? You see what he's wearing, and you got way more cops than you need for one guy who was allegedly breaking into cars. And if he was or if he wasn't is not the point. If he was, yeah, he deserves to go to jail, but he doesn't deserve to go to the fucking morgue.
No, I would say that situation, the cop should be guilty.
He was.
Okay,
he got convicted. It's the most prominent case of a cop getting convicted in the last 5 years. To me, at least. I mean, think of all those cops that were involved in the Freddie Gray situation in Baltimore. Mm-hmm. The guy that was, bounced around the back of the paddy wagon and wound up dead. And almost every one of those motherfuckers have gotten off. And that's what pisses off the public. And the cops probably don't want to get
send every cop that kills somebody to jail, because then the cops ain't going to do their fucking job anymore. Look what happened in Baltimore. Or was it Philadelphia? Where was that? I think it was Philadelphia. The cops were acquitted because they strangled that black guy.
I don't know which case we're talking about there.
I wish I had the
I know what you're saying, though, because somebody that I know that worked 4th Precinct, Minneapolis, after the Jmann Clark shooting, they said the cops don't even want to get out of their car half the time anymore, because the second they get there, the phones are up, the cameras are rolling, and people are looking to antagonize them just to get famous.
Yeah.
So they don't even answer many calls anymore. They just roll by quick, and they whoop, the siren, get people out of the street, but they only get out for the worst calls now.
Yeah, where my kids were in daycare, there was one of the other kids there, his dad was a Minneapolis cop, and he told very vague stories. But he said that, when they pull somebody over, they will wait. But by the time a cop just turns his lights on to pull somebody over in Minneapolis, there's already another squad within a couple of blocks. And then they will not do anything until there's 2 squad cars on that one car.
Yeah, you got multiple body cam angles now.
Yeah. multiple dash cams and everything, because it's, the people are trying to fuck with the cops, they're trying to make the cops look bad, the cops are trying to cover their own asses, but it's also, Minneapolis is violent.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, when I used to do traffic control for the private company and I was in Minneapolis all the damn time at night, hated it.
You'd hear gunshots off in the distance.
I think I did a few times. I remember one time I was, XL Energy had a pit kit in a guy's yard, and I went over there because they were saying that the boards they were using to cover the pit so people couldn't fall in it were kind of sagging, so I went up there to put fence around and everything like that, and I pull up, I'm wearing a bright yellow and orange vest, I had a truck with all the strobes on, so my presence was known. I go walking in the guy's yard, and I start setting up the snow fence. I see the front door open up, and the guy comes, he's got a rifle, he's like, oh, and he goes back in and shuts his door, and I'm like, yeah. So I reported it to my supervisor. I was like, they came out, they had a gun in their hand.
Yeah. I get why cops wouldn't want to be told how people think they should do their job when they're not a cop, but you need to listen to the public because you're out there serving the public and you're defending the public and you're responding to the public. And that's how you're going to destroy this chasm between law enforcement and the public at large that don't trust you, are afraid of you. The second you show up, they start uttering things like, I don't want to die. How many fucking handcuffing videos people are screaming, I don't want to die?
No, a lot of them.
It's just, it's crazy.
And for a while there, it was don't tase me. Every time somebody's getting arrested, don't tase me.
Take the ride. It's 5 fucking seconds. Quit being a pussy. I did it. I did it, and it wasn't terrible. I mean, afterwards, I swore a bunch, but I was like, wow, you fucking serious? That's what we do to people? That's what I said. I have the DVD of the performance. My last thought on this is that people ask me, I don't understand why you're not using your degree. I don't want to fucking be a cop anymore. Why would anybody? I mean, sure, you've got your noble pretenses of wanting to help people, but there's a lot of jobs where you can help people that don't involve all the public scrutiny, all the media attention, and all the goddamn stress that comes with that
danger,
job.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, though, Officer Brailsford got off on this one, and he probably should not have.
I have to agree, you probably shouldn't got off on it, honestly. Just hearing the description and all that, and hearing there was another way to handle it. Now, I'm wondering, like, the 5 cops that were out in front of your house to approach the neighbors, when you were in training and taking the classes out, when they group up, it's like, okay, here's what we're going to do they pick somebody, like you be the one giving the commands, we'll be the backup officers or whatever?
Command and cover, high and low.
Command and cover. I mean, do they plan out who's supposed to do what, at least somewhat, so that if they do walk up there and things are going well, like, say at the hotel, there's one guy that's covering at the low ready, and the other guys, there's one person giving commands, so that it's not confusing? Do they plan that out?
They do, and it only takes a few seconds to just give some quick directives because you train on that shit.
But I guess when you get into the situation, everything just goes to hell.
So here's going to be the end of the show. Here's you going to watch the fucking video.
That is a very well-lit hallway.
Yes, it is.
I was expecting something like the hallway at my house.
Yeah. We'll go with this CBS News one here.
Stop! Stop! Get on the ground, both of you! Lay down on the ground! Lay down on the ground! Who else is in the room?
Nobody.
Nobody else is in the room?
Nobody.
Are you positive?
Nobody. Absolutely positive.
Okay. Since apparently we have a failure for you to comprehend simple instructions, I'm going to go over some of them again, okay? Can you both hear and understand me?
Yes.
All right. If you make a mistake, another mistake, there's a very severe possibility you're both going to get shot. Do you understand that?
Yes.
I do.
Yes.
All right.
What the?
Shut up. I'm not here to be tactful or diplomatic with you. You listen, you obey.
So immediately the cop says there's a very high possibility that the both of you are going to get shot if you move.
Hands up in the air! You do that again, we're shooting you. Do you understand?
Please do not shoot me.
Then listen to my instructions.
I'm trying to do what you.
Don't talk! Listen! Hands straight up in the air. Do not put your hands down for any reason. You think you're going to fall, you better fall on your face. Your hands go back in the small of your back or down. We are going to shoot you. Do you understand me?
Yes, sir.
That's the second time he's mentioned that if you move, I'm going to kill you, basically.
Crawl towards me. Crawl towards me!
Yes, sir.
Don't.
And the video freezes right when they shoot him. How do you feel about that?
It did look kind of like he was going to draw a weapon, but I didn't foresee him being any kind of a threat up until it looked like he was drawing his weapon. And I don't know. I've never had cops pointing guns at me before. Do they usually say, "Don't move or we're going to kill you"?
I probably would not recommend using that exact verbiage. As you could see from the statements made by the officer, he was pretty charged up. And he tells them both, Mr. Shaver and the female, there's a very high chance that you're both going to get shot if either one of you move or don't listen to my commands. And then he tells the guy to crawl towards him. And all that the crying man says is, I don't want to get shot. And he goes, stop talking. You need to listen. Follow my instructions. Is that de-escalating it, or is that escalating it in your opinion?
Well, it's not de-escalating. I don't know if it's escalating it.
Because the cop's tone was only angry.
I think it just kept the tension right where it was.
But what's the difference between, if you don't follow my commands, I will shoot you, versus, I don't want to shoot you. I don't want anything to happen to me. I just want to calm things down. You gotta get out of that fucking cowboy mindset.
No, and I could see that the latter would be a better thing to say. Yeah, totally. I think this cop should have been guilty.
Yeah, he should have been convicted.
It should have been a guilty verdict.
Of not murder, but probably a lesser manslaughter charge.
Yeah, it wasn't, I picture murder as plotting and,
premeditated.
This would be like manslaughter. You made a mistake, but unfortunately paid his life for it. You were trained to do better. And you've been a shitty cop anyway, so you're guilty. And the court said they found that he acted within his training, but then he was fired from the department for not following policy. So how well was he following his training? What the fuck? Yeah. Interact with the show on Twitter at What Do We Call It? That is at What Do We Call It? You can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/group/What Do We Call It podcast show. For the What Do We Call It podcast, I'm Jmann. And I'm number one fan, Tim. And that's the end. We, the jury, duly impaneled and sworn in the above entitled action, and upon our oaths, do find the defendant, Philip Mitchell Brailsford, on the charge of count 1, second-degree murder, not guilty.